All right. This is David XRPLion, and it is Sunday, April 20th, Resurrection Sunday. And it's about 6:37 my time here. And I put a quick post about this early this morning. And I hope you had just a wonderful and blessed day with family, giving plenty of praise and thanksgiving for everything that God has already done for your life. And I want you to know that God is a keeper of every single promise. And just when you think there isn't anything else that he can show you, he just surprises the heck out of you. And there's a little story that goes along with this. And we're picking up with revelation that he dropped yesterday. So yesterday, I mean at like 10 p.m. And I worked through the night to get all this done. And it's always in that quiet, early morning hour when there's no distractions. And he'll start me working on something. And again, I'm not trying to figure out where it's going. I'm just drilling down on the revelation. And he takes me back to the calendar. And he says, Dave, what do we know? And of course, that was a rhetorical question. Because after working with him for over 4 years, 2 full-time jobs a day, I know where he's going when he throws out these little rhetorical comments. And I'd made some comments in the last video that when we were talking about Julian, California, it was really telling us to use the Julian calendar. And that the magnitude 5.2 earthquake was really a reflection of 5 being telling us the month. So it's like a code. The month is 5. The day is 2. And he says, Dave, remember, you can always flip those numbers. So he sends me back, and I make this slide today. And I posted it. I'm sure most people saw it already. But he was showing me how we get M for month, 5 for May 2nd, and then 52 is 25. That's the year we're in, 2025. So 5, 2, 25. And these are the type of things that he would always bring up all the time. And it just always has me in this state of awe. And I was drilling down on this word earthquake, because he said a while back, he told me, he said, Dave, there's going to be a shaking that is so violent, no one's ever experienced it before. He said there's going to be an earthquake 7.3 to 9.3 off the California coast. And I kind of saw this area off of like Orange County area. Well, I think it was like maybe 3 to 6 months after that, we had a 7.3 earthquake off the coast of California. I think it was in the LA area. And it was kind of like, check the box. But I really didn't feel like the magnitude. See, and this M can also stand for magnitude, because that's a term that Brad Garlinghouse uses to describe the exchange of value that happens through XRP on the XRPL. And of course, magnitude is a power of 10 to 12. So I'm just leaning in, and it's like, Dave, there's more here. And I was tired, because I had been up all night. Excuse me. And I'm just, continue to drill down, because speed isn't the key. It's the patience to work through it and see the process, right? That's all the fun. So I did this one. I thought, okay, that's going to do it. And then lo and behold, he drops more. And this is where he took me. He took me over to Exodus and our Red Sea moment again. And I'm like, okay, so where is this going to go? I'm thinking this in my head, where's this going to go? And I had been working on something completely different. So to reiterate the history, Moses led roughly 2 million Hebrews out of Egypt and into the wilderness for 80 years on the way to the Promised Land. During that time, Moses received the 10 Commandments. These were written by God, by his hand, on 2 stone tablets. And I thought, okay, well, I know about the 10 Commandments. We all do, right? We watched Charlton Heston and the 10 Commandments. And we saw him go up on Mount Sinai. And the lightning and everything else. But this is what I had not truly understood, and I think it's really important, and it leads into what we're talking about right now. God revealed additional laws that would govern all aspects of life for the Israelites. And these laws were much more detailed and covered a wide range of topics, from sacrificial rites to ritual purity to dietary restrictions, civil and criminal laws. And you can imagine, Moses comes down off Mount Sinai and he's got 2 tablets with 10 rules, 10 laws. And Moses is managing 2 million people who he just, after the second time, is leading out of Egypt. So you can imagine it becomes an issue. And 10 commandments aren't going to cut it. There's just too much happening in between the 10 commandments. So Moses receives 613 what are called mitzvahs. Mitzvah. And this is the aspect of the additional laws and governing restrictions and civil and criminal laws to fill in the blanks. Governs the spiritual, social, and ritual life to help them maintain their unique relationship with God and to separate them from the practices of the surrounding nations. Because what was going on with the surrounding nations at the time? They were worshiping idols. They were pagan. They weren't following the one and only true and living God. So you can see how, 613 rules. And as it was said, you couldn't break any of these laws if you expected to go to heaven, to be with God. 613. Now, come on. If they couldn't take care of 10, how are they going to take care of 613? Right? And this just wore on Moses. Just wore him out. And he had to use Aaron and his sister and others to help set up like a court system. But God is pulling all this back in, and I'm just, okay, God, okay, we're looking at this, we're looking at that. because Moses had to have a way to manage what was going on. So then what's happening? Moses leads everybody on the Exodus, and they're headed into the Promised Land. Right? So here's where the symbology comes in. First they get 10 commandments, and it's not enough. Then they get the extra 613. And the 613 are scattered throughout the 5 books of the Torah. And this all happens around the 12th century, or roughly 1312 BCE. But it's still in force today. It's the structure of their belief system. But there is tremendous symbolic comparisons to what we've been going through with our financial system. Okay? And you'll see how some of this relates to today. So during their time in the wilderness, the Hebrews grumbled and complained. They grumbled and they complained. Why? Because they missed all the trappings of Egypt. They talked about how much they desired the meat, the leeks and the potatoes. And here Moses has them out in the wilderness, and they're being taken care of every day by manna falling from heaven, which they have to gather up every morning. They can only gather enough for the day. And then on Friday, they gather twice a portion. So they have that for the Sabbath. Because on the Sabbath, they were not allowed to do any work. Now, if they took too much on any other day, it went bad before the day was over. But when they took 2 portions on Friday, one for Friday and one for Saturday, the portion that was held back for Saturday, it was perfectly fine. But Moses goes up to get the 10 Commandments when he goes up to Sinai to spend time with the Lord. And he specifically tells them, do not create a statue or a golden calf. And they're like, okay, Moses, whatever you say. We'll see when you get back. Well, he leaves Aaron in charge, his brother. And during the time, the people are just revolting. And he's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I have to appease these people. I got to calm them down. Well, what's the one thing that's going to calm them down the fastest? Well, give them what they used to have. And in Egypt, they had idols. They prayed to golden cows and calves and statues and things of that nature. So he lets them round up all their gold jewelry, and they melt it down, and they make this golden calf, and they start worshiping it. After Moses told them not to. So Moses comes back down off the mountain with the 2 tablets. And by the time he gets down to where they're at, what does he do? He sees this golden calf. And he is just livid. It's like, how could you do this? The Lord said not to do this, and you went ahead and did it. Well, he was so distraught about them defying God's orders, he took one of the tablets and threw it at the calf, and the tablet broke. And then what he did is he made them break the calf down into tiny little pieces and grind it up into a fine powder and drink it in water as a penalty. So for 80 years they wandered around out in the wilderness because of their grumbling and complaining and this kind of thing. Now, mind you, they never went without food. They never went without water. Their clothing never wore out. All their needs were met. And he just took them around out in the wilderness. Now, you'll remember I said that the first time Moses went to Pharaoh, his uncle, and asked that the Hebrews be given one day off to go out into the desert to worship their Creator, Pharaoh said no. So Moses leaves for a short period of time. God sends him back and says, okay, since Pharaoh won't let my people come and worship me, then go and tell him to let my people go. And this is where we hear about Pharaoh saying no, and then we have the plagues, and then we have Pharaoh's own firstborn son being killed. And Pharaoh just finally throws in the towel and says, your God is more powerful than mine. Take whatever you want and just go. And they leave with all the riches of Egypt. And they head out. Moses is leading them. And then they get to the Red Sea. And Moses raises his arms with his staff. And the Red Sea parts and they walk through it. Pharaoh comes to his senses and sends his chariots and his warriors to bring them back. And by the time they get probably halfway to 3/4 of the way across, Moses puts his arms down after all of God's people are safe on the other side. And the Red Sea collapses on them and they all drowned. So what's the point of that? The point of that is we've been living in bondage by the foreign bankers, Rothschilds, fractionalized fiat, Khazarian mafia reserve banking system, a debt-based currency system. Currency created out of thin air, backed by nothing. Well, God always had a plan before the beginning of time. And that was to take us out of that fiat currency system and into his promised land, which is the quantum financial system. And he's done that currently with President Trump and the Global Alliance. But where did it all start? I've heard some people mention it started in 1994. No, it didn't start in 1994. It started with President Kennedy and 20 generals. And they set out to restore a precious metals backed currency standard. Now, I was really surprised when I found this out because I've done a whole video on Kennedy bringing in the precious metals system and then shortly thereafter being assassinated. But this is what I didn't know. He was working with Sarnoff, President Sarnoff. And President Sarnoff agreed to provide the gold to Kennedy. It's one of the biggest gold deals ever at that time. And Kennedy was going to use the gold to to support a silver backed system. Well, Sukarno actually was his cousin. I came to find out. So are you kind of seeing what's going on here? And we know Kennedy is a Clooney. He's related to Abraham Lincoln. Now we find out that Sukarno, President Sukarno, is a cousin to Kennedy. And in 1994, I just happened to be at the right place at the right time at a tax continuation education conference in Los Angeles near the airport. And a gentleman showed up out of the blue. Didn't know it was coming at the very end of the week, April 1994. And his name was Dan Rostenkowski, and he was the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. So he sits there over 35 minutes, 40 minutes, proceeds to tell us, a little small group of about 20, 25 people, about this plan that's been on the chalkboard at the White House since Kennedy. Now, he outlines the things that are going to be done. Privatization of the Postal Service, remapping of Social Security, the elimination of income tax, no tax on investments, no tax on the sales of homes, no tax on capital gains, no income tax, period. In its place would be a consumption tax. That's what he called it. 14% consumption tax. And that hasn't changed in nearly 31 years. More than likely, they're going to call it a national sales tax, but it's 14% and only applies to new items. Doesn't apply to used homes or used cars, clothing, medication, food, staples, things like that. That's very similar in nature to what we're talking about when Trump talks about tariffs. Okay? Here's what I put together with the tariffs. Okay? Again, remember, this is all part of a strategically orchestrated reality awareness war. SORAW. S-O-R-A-W. It's real. And each one of the countries is part of the BRICS Accord, which already agreed to leave the Rothschild fractionalized fiat currency reserve banking system into the quantum financial system, which is 100% gold asset-backed currency standard. And Trump used the executive orders 13818, 13848, and 13959 to secure and seize all assets in the world, from individuals, companies, entities, nations, governments involved in child trafficking, crimes against humanity, election fraud. So working hand in hand with the Global Alliance, they hold all the assets. They hold all the cards. And that's what, with XRP, well, I'm not going to get ahead of myself here. So these generals have been responsible for working with Trump since as early as 2004 in the final assault to take out the deep state elites and remove what was the debt-based currency system. So at this point right now, it's gone. It's over. On March 4th, 2025, that meeting that Trump had on TV, that was the statement identifying the restoration of our republic, which meant that the Rothschild system was over. It was done. And on March 25th of this year, he activated NESARA and GESARA. NESARA is the national program. GESARA is the global program. Now, there's a lot of debate about what the initials mean. I did a 3-page white paper on it. and came up with a different arrangement for the words based upon the use of words, not just what is being shown out there. Because again, all of this had to be kept secret when the Sarah was signed by Bill Clinton in 2000. I think it was roughly October of 2000. Because anybody that leaked the information would have been found guilty of treason. And a couple senators or congressmen were found guilty of treason for having leaked it. Because they didn't want people to know, even though it was already signed into law. So there are those that call it the National Economic Stabilization and Recovery Act. My linguistic forensic analysis uses the word reformation, not the word recovery. Okay? But it really doesn't matter at this point. We understand what it's all about. And I'll probably change the name of it. But if you want to, go read that white paper. It's really cool. It presents both sides of the equation. And in the very end, it actually surprised me. Because I thought it was going one way, and it went a completely different way. And the Lord said, well, here's why, Dave. And I went, oh my gosh. Sitting there right in front of me, why couldn't I have figured that out? But enough about that. XRP killed the former giants in the land and cut off their heads. And that's what Trump and the alliance have been doing. They're not just, playing patty cake. This is a capture and terminate operation. And I remember when I said that to Patriot Underground, he stuttered. Like, you mean like termination? I said, yeah, kill, eliminate. You don't get rid of the roaches or the rats by just throwing them outside, putting them in a cage. Why? Because they'll figure out how to get out. And that's why the whole program had to be consolidated. And everything had to happen at once. Because too many rats would have gotten away. So here's what's key to know. And I've covered this in other videos. XRP is not a currency. It's not a token in the sense of the other 27,000. Those are all designed to become currency. XRP is not the world reserve currency. It was never intended to be. Okay? But in the narrative, it had to be hidden because it was all part of the special operation that was being conducted by the Global Alliance with a group of over 200 military generals, President Trump, Space Alliance, and the Galactic Federation. This was, when I say was, it's because evil's been eliminated. Now, there's going to be people out there say, well, no, they're still there. We see them on TV. They're not the real people. You're seeing a cast of characters. There's over 200,000. Some of them are actually the real people. They were captured. They cut their deals to buy more time before their time expires and they're removed permanently. We're not playing games here. This is about the rescue of humanity, just in the same way that God sent Moses in to tell Pharaoh to set his people free. God has sent in the Global Alliance, the military generals, President Trump, to do one thing: eradicate and eliminate all evil on the face of this earth. It's being purged. People couldn't believe when I started talking about a purge. They couldn't believe that what they had been taught in church about the rapture, the good old by and by. Well, life's just so tough. We're just waiting for God to come and take us home. Well, that was a lie by the Vatican Church to pacify God's people. It was never God's plan. God said, Dave, my plan has never been to rapture Christians to heaven. It's always been to rapture evil to hell. Evil had to be removed from the face of the earth so that his plan could move forward. So that we could be spotless brides. And he gave me a revelation on that. What does that mean, spotless bride? It means that we're all healthy. We have no infirmities, no illness, no disease. And that's what these med beds are doing in our new economic and spiritual system. We are all going to be made whole again. And by that, this is what confirms the prophecy of the second coming of Jesus, or Yeshua, for the spotless bride. Doesn't it make a lot more sense? You can't become spotless if you can't be healed. Why? Because if there was just one that wasn't, the prophecy couldn't be fulfilled. Isn't that awesome? So back to XRP. XRP was part of this entire process, part of God's plan to eliminate all evil and to bring us back to a 100% gold, asset-backed currency standard reserve banking system that all 209 nations agreed to in the BRICS Accord, which puts every single currency in the world at par to one another. A dollar is a dollar. US, China, China, Japan. You take any country, and it doesn't matter what they call their currency right now, $1 is the same anywhere in the world. Once the EBS goes off and we begin the process of rolling out the system across the entire world. Now, that's not going to happen overnight, but we're going to get a jump start. We're going to have the redemption centers. We're going to have our currency exchanges and our bond redemptions. We're going to see the launch of the Humanitarian Projects. We're going to see XRP functioning in its entire role on the XRPL for the QFS. Now, there's plenty of people out there, and they're growing by the day. Paid influencers whose 100% task it is to make sure you don't know this. That you think it's all about cross-border payments. It's all about institutions adopting XRP. Well, let me just tell you how it is. There will not be a financial institution that isn't operating on the quantum financial system. Every single transaction in the world goes onto the quantum financial system through XRP onto the quantum consciousness, the megalithic financial structure, to be reported, recorded, and stored. See, that's what took out the cabal. You'll see down here. Okay? The XRPL with XRP was running in parallel to the Rothschild system around the world. Every bank, every financial transaction mirrored in real time. So the alliance had years to access, to see, and capture and understand all their evil and corrupt practices. How were they moving money? Where was it going? What accounts was it going into? Who were the people connected? So they had it all. And because they had it all, there's nowhere where these people could run. And what we're seeing now is, for example, with Elon, and I've talked about this before, because my background is tax and accounting, audit, forensic accounting. If this was a normal situation and they were going into audit or examine the books of a federal agency, we wouldn't see the results in our lifetime. The cabal would have made sure of it. But now think of it from the perspective that the AI, quantum consciousness, computer system called Prometheus is running in the background and designing and building algorithms to track and find and obtain all the information on everything that they're doing. So it already knew what algorithm to run for USAID. So Elon has that loaded onto the key. The 4 Doge agents walk in, pop it in the system, boot it up. It's already instructed to go into their system, already knows where to go. Nothing can hide. And all it does is confirm what they already know. Because see, that's what audits are all about. You're trying to confirm things that they're giving you information on. So they give you this giant printout that tells you everything that they did. So in an audit, you have systems and procedures to test, sample those transactions. Now, out of 100,000 transactions, you may test 20. And if the 20 come up correctly, then it's good. But see, with this AI algorithm that was built by Prometheus, it was sampling millions of transactions. So it didn't matter what they tried to do. It knew exactly where it was all going. And remember when Elon made the comment about how they were dropping almost like receipts and paper into a hole in the ground? And it was falling 100 feet deep. Well, that was the federal agency's form 1165, which is designed for federal agencies to issue a receipt for making cash payments to contractors. Well, who's a contractor? Anybody they say. Black ops? Yeah. NGOs? Yeah. Anybody they want to get cash money to so they don't have a record of it? Yeah. Where does the cash come from? Fed Reserve puts it in the system, sends the request over to the U.S. Treasury Department. Okay, we need you to print $100 million in these denominations. Okay. Treasury sends that over to printing. They print it. They pallet it. And then the white vans come up, pick it up, and it's gone. It disappears. So then it's supposedly supposed to go to the places where they need emergency aid. Afghanistan, Pakistan, and any other place. Haiti. And then they just take as much of it as they want. Maybe 2% actually gets used on site. And it just goes back onto another plane and it goes to the people that are ripping it off. But see, they already had all that information already covered because they've been doing it for years. But see, the deep state didn't know that. The deep state thought they could fight off anything that Elon was going to do. Oh, there's enough time. We just wait out Trump. He'll be gone in 4 years, and we'll take back control. Well, that was never God's outcome. God's outcome was they were eliminated. And that's where the final purge or cleansing comes. They're doing it right now. And the last part of the purge comes at the Redemption Center. If you're evil, nefarious, and you have intentions of wrongdoing, you don't go through the Redemption Center to receive any of the money. You're just eliminated immediately. Now, I kind of jokingly describe it as the Star Trek moment. Because, like Trump said, we have technology that's far and superior above anything else that anyone ever knows about. So it's just off to the lake of fire they go. But see, that's why all the money for the QFS is on the backside. You have to, you have to have a good heart, a pure heart, to be invited in. Why? Because it's God's economy. He gets to choose. And they have all the technology to do that. This is what the XRP and XRPL are all about. That's why it's not any other mentioned token. It's not XLM, even though Jed McCaleb hijacked the code for XRP. No. If at best, it was a backup, like in Contact. So that's the importance of what XRP is all about. I've done the forensic analysis. I've leaned into the Lord. I've received the revelation. I've seen behind the curtain. I know the processes. I know the protocols. I know what things are called. But the paid influencers out there are waging their little fetal effort to convince people, oh, it's about cross-border payments. It's about CBDCs. If you hear those words, you need to block those people and move on, because they are a complete waste of time. They're trying to sell you on a narrative that is not true, will never be true, and keep you away from understanding what's going on here. Now, this isn't investment advice. I'm not telling anybody to run out there and buy XRP. If you own XRP, you know why you own it. And if this message is resonating with you, because it's all for educational purposes only, lean into the Lord. Take your request to Him and see what He says. But this is the best kept secret in the world. Why? Because it's the most important thing to our future, to our children's future, to our grandchildren and their children and their children. This is a 750-year legacy. That's why. Thank God he brought me here and gave me the privilege to share this with you. Do not take this lightly. We are down to the last days. And by the time we're done today, there shouldn't be one question in your mind about what's going on and what's happening. And there should be nothing that keeps you from relaxing and resting, as God put it. R-E-S-T, resist every stupid thought. Because these paid influencers, they don't care. And the Lord already told me that a vast majority of them were already captured by the alliance, and they cut their deals and they bought time. And they're being compensated through YouTube. I have never witnessed people with so many views over such a short period of time on information that meant nothing, said nothing, was no different than the other 25 people that were saying it. So what do we see now? Everybody's talking about the doom and gloom, thinking that's what people want. And that's the headline of their video every single day. It's like, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And then you listen to the video and all they're doing is pitching their merchandise. Oh, here's my 25th book. It's available on Amazon. And then they just rehash history. They don't tell you about this. You won't find anybody, and I'm not being boastful. This is the assuredness I have because of the proximity and the closeness of me working the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs every single day since April 3rd of 2021, receiving direct revelation from the Lord. Never having been in the space, never understanding or being exposed to decentralized networks, blockchain. Everything that I know has come from him. And it has astounded people. That's the assuredness you hear. It's not cockiness. It's assuredness, because I know my Father is a keeper of every single promise. And what you're going to see here in just a few minutes is more proof from him. More proof that this is his operation. He's in charge. Because you won't hear any one of these other people giving the glory and praise to God. It's as if their own God. They're their own God. Because they know it all. But people are desperate right now. This has lasted longer than anybody thought. People have given their life to this, just like myself, without income. And when you're going on, over 4 years, it starts to weigh financially on the family. And people are at the breaking point right now. And I believe after the rest of this video, you're going to gain the confidence in what God has been saying. And you'll be able to sit back, rationalize what you had been looking at as false doctrine, false prophets, paid prophets, with a motivation to steer you away from the truth. Because they're being paid to. They know if they try to start talking about this, They can't compete with what God has said. So they're going to stay talking about BlackRock, ETFs, everything about trading, staking, brokerages. See, that's all just a narrative, everybody. I just posted a video this morning. Brad Garlinghouse, for the second time, has come out at a conference and said, we're not doing an IPO. Everybody's trying to pin him to the ground and say, Brad, aren't you so excited about doing an IPO? When are you going to do an IPO? Are you doing an IPO 2025? And the answer is like, no. Definitely no. How many times do I have to tell you no? I'm not changing my answer because we know what we're doing. But if you don't understand XRP's plan and purpose in the global structure of taking out evil, then you've missed the boat. You're on the wrong bus. You wanted to go to Las Vegas and you're headed to New York. And you've been traveling for days and you don't want to get off the bus because it's comfortable. You know when it's going to stop and when you're going to get to go to the bathroom and when you get to eat. That's not what God is calling us to do. I'm not here just to tell you something that will give you warm and fuzzy feelings. He brought me here to reveal the plan to steal, kill, and destroy. See, there was a plan to steal all the XRP for $5. See, I already knew that. That's why he brought me in. But do you think I told the people who were assigned to handle me, to keep me confined, so people would know who I was? No, we can't have him putting that information out there. They could damage the lawsuit. Right. I'm the one that told everybody that it was just smoke and mirrors. It was all about protecting XRP. Military Witness Protection Program. Gary Gensler was the marshal. And if you think he was anything otherwise, you're listening to talking fools who have created a structure to get you to pick up a fence, which is the devil's #1 tactic to separate you from God. And that's enough, folks, that if you're harboring resentment or ill will in your heart, when you're on your way to your Redemption Center appointment, you're not making it through. You don't go through. And I can't say it any more matter of fact. He's had me deliver this message for over 3 years. And they're making every attempt. The minions. By creating a movie. So you would all get upset. And man, some of you just need to get on the ground. And you just need to be telling God how sorry you are for having believed those lies from the enemy. For picking up offense. For using the words that you've used against this man who volunteered. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect. He has a past. He was part of the cast of characters. But he was the one chosen to play that role. And what's happening right now with XRP and the stay, we'll call it the stay, You guys aren't even addressing the question that should be addressed. Nobody's addressing the question about, well, what happens to all the institutions that acquired XRP and it's been identified as a security? That's what the penalty was all about. Had nothing to do with anything else. But y'all are so caught up in the narrative. When I fully revealed the use of the letter A, fooled y'all. Now, it fooled me too for a while. But see, the difference is I already knew it wasn't real. You all bought into it. And you picked up resentment. And you wanted to attack that poor man. He had a job to do. Okay? Oh, did you see this? Did you all notice that Jay Clayton just got put into the Southern District by President Trump? Would you look at that? Y'all said things about him too. Do you realize if it wasn't for him working with the alliance and Trump, if that lawsuit had been dropped one day earlier, if it had been dropped on the 21st or sooner, in December 2020, the devil would have been given reign to rule this earth for eternity. And we wouldn't be here, folks. He calls Brad Garlinghouse on the 21st and lets him know that the lawsuit is going to be filed the next day, on the 22nd. A contract expired on the 21st of December 2020, which made it possible for God to step in and say, okay, Satan, you had your time. It's over. Back into chains. This is my world now. I'm taking back what I created. I gave you 7,885 years to steal, kill, and destroy. You could never kill my creation, but you taught man how to kill each other. And how to call it success. Your days are done. They're over. I proved all that in how he taught Enoch to help the Maya create the calendar to keep track of the days so that he could never come back and say it wasn't correct. Now, this is a little bit more than I anticipated for today, but the Holy Spirit's telling me you need to hear it. It needs to be refreshed in your memory. You need to be aware of things that have already taken place. And I know there's a lot of new people. And God love you. But there isn't time to go back and answer these beginner's questions. I'm sorry about that. You know how to get to my Twitter page. You know how to get to my Rumble page. That's all you need to do. Is go in and watch those videos. Spend the time. Read the posts. Read the white papers. Academic level white papers, forensically dissecting everything you need to know about XRP on the XRPL for the QFS. The Ripple stablecoin. What's that all about? Okay? Back to the lawsuit. We're not going to see it close before the EBS goes off. And the other important thing is that lawsuit, which was really only just an inquiry, it was based on the foreign bankers, Rothschilds system, where the United States was a corporation. So the courts ran as part of a corporation Well, those days are over. They're bankrupt. They're no longer in power. President Trump moved us over to a sovereign system that we had back in on the 4th of March 1789. So they're hijacking with the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871 is no longer valid. Okay? Listen to what I just said. Everything that they did under that system is no longer valid. The lawsuit is no longer valid. Why do you think the SEC came in and immediately just started dismissing cases? Even cases where people were embezzling money. Embezzling money. And they just shut them out. Dropped them. No more going after people. But XRP was the Ripple, called the Ripple, was the only one that was hanging in the wind. See, we had to buy enough time to get through getting rid of all the evil, seizing all of the assets for all these corporations, individuals, and countries, using those assets to back our new quantum financial system 100% with gold. I mean, they have gold that's valued, and this is just at like $2,000 an ounce. It's not even the quantum valuation. That's like 10 to the 3,600 power. It's like 10 with the little 3600 up in the upper right-hand corner. You can't spend all that. It's not possible. It's so much. God didn't just say, oh, here's enough. No, he said, here's more than enough. And if you need more than that, just let me know. Because he owns everything already. So it's not a problem for him. Because why? It's, we're like the Hebrews who just got taken out of Egypt, who were given everything. See the parallels? Pharaoh says, just take everything and go. We took everything that they had and we left. Okay? So I feel like we've kind of covered it enough. Okay? So you can let go of these old idols, right? Let go of your golden calf. Let go of your Bitcoin. Let go of your Bradley Kimes and your DAIs and all these other people who could give a crap about you, who just want you to come to a seminar in Las Vegas. Well, that's canceled, the Lord said. We're going to be going through the system here, and there's no need for any of that. Just a waste of time. And you don't need to be following false prophets. So the alliance has killed the giants in the land. And that was the Federal Reserve and all that. So how does this all tie back to what God's been showing me? So here's what happened today. I'm working on something. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And my system is glitching and the time is changing. And one moment I'm 2 hours back in time and then I'm an hour ahead in time. And I'm just translating back and forth. So he's taking me into the future. He's taking me into the past. And he's showing me all this. So he takes me back to what he gave Moses in the beginning. The rules, the laws, the regulations. And that's kind of like the old Cabal system, right? Where they decided what they were going to do. So Moses got the 613 mitzvot. God gave us XRP. And for those of you that don't know, it began trading on August 2nd, 2013. And it was actually trading at 0.000587. Pretty close to 589. Now see, I've always known that XRP was a timeline, because that's the first thing he showed me, and that was the first great reveal on May 13th of 2021. It was a timeline. So that timeline has been part of our exodus. And the lawsuit is in there kind of, being the clown to get everybody upset because nothing's happening. And then the paid influencers and talking heads are, all they talk about is pump, pump, pump. And we're going to get this, and this is going to happen. And then we're going to get the AMM, automated market makers, and XRP is going to pump. And then we're going to get the ETFs, and XRP is going to pump. And then we're going to get some settlement stuff on the lawsuit, and XRP is going to pump. There's no pump, everyone. It's all part of the narrative. It's all a play. And this is your Clavers and your Mickles and your DAIs and your Bradley Kimes and Linda P. Jones, Verson, all these people. They're just all part of the old narrative to keep you away. Now, if they really don't know, then there's something wrong with them. They shouldn't even be on the airwaves. But see, they know I know. And God's had me call them out because he is sick and tired of their money changer ways. And he's having them called out personally. Now, does it mean they're going to stop? No, they won't stop. They need that money coming in from YouTube. They're probably making $20,000 to $30,000 a month pushing videos, saying the most stupid things in the world about XRP, about this and that, and then trying to make it look like they care. That's the pathetic part. Because I know they don't. God's already read me in. And he read me in from the very beginning, people. Going back 4 years. Okay? So don't think this is just coming up now. No. They have been addressed for years. And nothing's changed. So it is what it is. And some of them thought they were going to get to me. No. God takes care of me. And he takes care of the people that come against me. And he's been doing that since I was in high school. So, I have no fear. So if you're one of those people out there that think you want to come against me, think again. Because you're coming after God. I'm his. He brought me here. Okay? So here we have this exodus. All of these things coming together, right? So we have what God gave Moses, and then we have XRP. Doing the same thing. Same thing. So here's how he laid it out. Remember in the video, we talked about the big events. About the Julian CA M5.2. The earthquake. So just hold on to that. Now we bring in the 613 mitzvot. Next we use it when XRP began trading on August 2nd, 2013. So this is where when I got to this point and I was doing this, I knew the answer before it popped up. So when we take August 2nd, 2013 and we add 613 weeks. Guess what we get for an end date? Guess. This is the proof that God's in control, and what you're seeing is revelation from Him. May 2nd. There's your earthquake. That's the earthquake felt around the world. May 2nd. 5.2. 25. 5.2. 25. That's all based upon the XRP timeline. From its start date to May 2nd, 613 weeks, ties back to Moses, ties back to the rules and regulations and ways of living for God's people since the Exodus. Whew. And it's 1 hour and 17 minutes and 17 seconds. Isn't that amazing? I just started bawling the moment it popped up. I already knew in my heart what it was. And this is what He does to me all the time. Just keeps me in awe. But He wasn't going to show anything else. He showed me how this was calculated. He showed me how these two situations were really one and the same. One was the beginning, and now we have a new beginning. Why? Because He's here. God's brought heaven to earth. He's brought His eternal revival. October 21st, 2021. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but just being on Twitter, I have never seen more posts about loving Yeshua, what He did for us on the cross. He was the only acceptable sacrifice. He is God in the flesh. God made the covenant promise with us. If we would come and live in this sin, self-inflicted, narcissistic nature world, and we would partake of it, meaning we had to taste it. Okay? He would guarantee and provide a way home so that we would be absolved of having to live in it, taste it, and play with it. Now, some people, they loved it too much, and they became it. And they're not going to be around. It became who they are. God had hoped people would grow tired and weary of it and come home to Him through the way He provided by becoming Yeshua or Jesus. See, that's why when the Sadducees and the Pharisees tried to pin Him down and tell Him, oh, well, you're here to do away with the law. No, I'm not. He didn't come to rescue God's people from their turmoil. He made that very clear. He came to guarantee us a way back to Him so we would be reunited with our Creator, with our Father. Why? I mean, it's all in the baptism. When John baptized Yeshua, he goes down into the water, he comes up. First thing he sees is a dove, the figure of a dove coming at him. And he receives the Holy Spirit with the full measure and fire. Okay, if you know anything about the gifts of the Holy Spirit, when it said full measure, it meant he had every single resource and power that the Holy Spirit had. Jesus could do anything. And the moment after that, the heavens parted and God spoke. Go look and see how many times God spoke. He spoke to Abraham. He spoke to Moses. He spoke to the Israelites in the desert, scared the crap out of them. And then he spoke when Jesus, Yeshua, was reunited through the baptism. What does it mean, be reunited? Well, remember, God communed with Adam and Eve in the Spirit in the Garden of Eden. And when that connection was severed, think of it as the Ethernet cable was taken out of the computer. There was no way for God to commune with his creation. And in the contract, it said God couldn't lift a finger to help mankind. See, God didn't show up in the instances where it wasn't dynamic. It wasn't Abraham. It wasn't Moses. It wasn't Jesus. No, he sent an angel. Because people would always respond, "Is that you, Lord?" And then the angel would have to announce themselves that they were an angel from the Lord. But see, what Satan didn't know was that God could commune through his Spirit. So God made it possible for us to be filled with his Holy Spirit. That's why Jesus said, "Hey guys, I got to go. I need to ascend into heaven." After he came back for that last 40-day period to catch them up on some pretty cool stuff. And he said, "I got to go so that you can receive the Comforter." Like, he knows you're yearning to commune with him, but he can't. It's under a contract. Had like a non-disclosure, like everybody over at Ripple. But once that indwelling of his Spirit was within Yeshua, that connection was reestablished. And it was like Bluetooth now. And God wasn't saying, "Oh, I'm so proud of you, son, for getting baptized." No. He was declaring and announcing to all of creation, "This is my son, in whom I am again." Paraphrase, I'm reconnected with my creation, everybody. I have a way to commune with my creation again, like I did in the garden. The only difference is I'm doing it through the Holy Spirit, so I don't void my contract. And because of this, it's like when Jesus said to Peter, right? On this revelation, on this word, on this revelation, I will build my church. And Peter's like, "Oh, thanks, Jesus. Okay, we're going to build the church on me." Wrong. It was on the revelation, not on the person, because that revelation came from the Father. So here's the revelation coming from the Father saying, I'm in communication again with my creation. I could not be more pleased. But every pastor out there, he botches the assignment because he doesn't understand the revelation. He doesn't understand what's happening with Yeshua, the reason for the baptism, and the reason for God showing up. See, God didn't have to show up. But he showed up to make a declaration. So every angel, every entity knew what just happened. And I can imagine at that moment, Satan just went, oh, beep. What just happened? I never saw this coming. But that was God fulfilling his covenant promise to each and every one of us. You go down and live in that sin suit, party it up, do it, taste it. It'll never be you because I don't create sin. And I'm not a punisher because if it was, you wouldn't come back. I wouldn't provide a way for you. And I heard a pastor say that this morning and I went, oh no. He said, oh yeah, God's going to punish you for being a sinner. I went, oh dude, what are you doing? See, that's why all these pastors are gone. They don't understand God's word. They don't understand God's purpose, what his intent is, why he became flesh and blood. God didn't have to save any of us. He did it because he made a covenant promise with us before we became flesh and blood. Who's talking about that? There's no pastors talking about that. I'm the one talking about it. I'm the one reading you in. Because God's reading me in. And he's saying, I'm sick and tired of these pastors leading my people astray. And they're all out. He's taken away their ministries. He's stripping them of their congregations. And he's already bringing in the people that he has read in who will operate through his Spirit. The Spirit will now control the message of God. We are the church, each and every one of us. A pastor has a ministry. It's not a church. He is a church. But that ministry is not a church, folks. It's a building. And don't let anybody tell you it isn't. It's anything different than that. They're not setting doctrine anymore. The doctrine's been hijacked. And we're going to come to learn and find out things. Oh. It's going to help us understand why we go directly through the Holy Spirit. And that's what it's all about. We're here because we volunteered for the job, right? Okay, Sarge, I enlisted. What do I do? Go live in the world. Well, what does that mean? Drink, smoke, do drugs, do all the stuff that you're told not to do. Get tired of it. Run to me, accept my incarnation in the flesh as Yeshua, as your Redeemer, who is paying the price so that you can be absolved of everything that you did. And you can come home to me. Parable of the prodigal son. End of story, people. End of story. You're sitting there battling a battle you're not supposed to be battling. You're being told by people who think and give you the impression they're God's voice. And they're not. So just be ready. But I'm so happy to have this time. I was like, Oh man, I mean, I was just thinking about this the whole day. And I just laid it down. I said, Holy Spirit, Father, I just give you all the praise and thanksgiving for having already given me the words that you want your people to hear today on this wonderful and joyous day. The day the price was paid in full. And as he said, hanging on the cross, it is finished. The debt paid in full. God bless you, everyone. God bless you. I love you. Bye-bye.